Hi, I'm Gravedigger Queen and I'm back. I have been working overtime putting bodies in the ground, but I got a little time off and I'm coming back around. I just love the Egyptians. They took death and celebrated it like a party, putting hearts and brains and livers in jars. It was so orderly. I wish there was camera recordings of the shit I did back then. Ooh boy, I'd love to tell you about their ancient technology, but I can't because I was sworn to secrecy. NDA from them on the planet they're from. I might have said too much. There are tons of fun things you can do with hearts, people, but when you lose them, boy, that is a pain in the ass. Tonight's tale is called Give Me My Heart Back by Montsho Shelby. You may be a champion of lite speak, but my pop culture fool is strong. I don't know, is it? How many Star Wars references have you dropped in the past couple of minutes? I don't know, none, because fuck Star Wars. Fuck Star Wars? Fuck Star Wars? I should snatch your ass through this computer right now. You wish? We all know if you saw me in real life, all you do is stand there like a pussy. I mean, you're talking Star Wars memes. I know you can't fight, but you could use the Force when I'm beating your ass. And if it makes you feel better, I pretend it's doing something, but I'm so strong you can't affect me because I'm a good friend. Yeah, the best. But seriously, we have to get some work done. How close are you to finishing that video? Not very. I started Baldur's Gate 3, so all that deadline shit, well, that's gonna be a no from me, dog. I really need you to be on it. Do you want to be like the Nerdarchy guys or the D&D Shorts guy? I figured you want to be like Jenny D because you're such a little girl. Enough with the puns, fucker. Oh, I'm sorry, the Force is my ally, and what a strong ally is he. I threw that in there for you, otherwise you probably couldn't understand. I'm definitely going to be late on the next video. Fuck, I'm out late. Doe crushed another can of Monster energy drink and began typing on his keyboard. He could feel his heart beating at an odd, irregular time, but he ignored it. He was young. Fuck his heart. It would do what he said, not the other way around. He was just about to get to editing the video of the animation of Ben Affleck and Matt Damon as Batman and Robin. But they didn't wear costumes, just a shirt with the name Batman and a shirt with the name Robin. And when you called them on not wearing masks, they'd say, "What are you gonna tell, you queer?" in their best sarcastic Boston accent. Doe really had fun voicing them in that skit, though you didn't get to be the Lonely Island boys by sleeping, but he could at least make it out of the Underdark in Baldur's Gate before he got to work. Then he was all business. He was up for a consecutive 48 hours by his own estimate. His body was humming and hot, burning like the infernal engine Karlach, his favorite Baldur's Gate character, had. He stepped away from the computer after untold hours on it. Whatever video he was planning to edit, well, that shit was going to have to wait for a while. He knew he needed to sleep, but for the life of him, he wasn't sure he could. He stood up and his body did the rest. He went to sleep. When he woke up, he was in a hospital bed. His body made the choice for him that he thought he could put off. He weakly looked around, attempting to take the haze from his eyes, but it was difficult because he was obviously coming off something. A nurse walked in. "Oh, you're awake," she said with surprise and concern. "Are you feeling okay?" "No, not really. It's hard to think. What happened?" "You had a heart attack, dear." "But I'm only 17. "Yeah, which made it really unusual. When they found you, you were in a pile of Monster energy drinks. You know you can't keep pounding those like water. It had been better if you were drinking heavily." "How long have I been out?" The nurse was slow to tell him, so he was getting the impression it was a while. "About 6 weeks. We had to put you into a coma and get you a heart transplant. But all that being said, you were lucky. Most people don't get hearts that fast." "Lucky me," Doe said sarcastically. "I'll get the doctor. He'll have to go over all the specifics. But welcome back to the land of the living," she said as she fluttered out of the room. He looked down to the scar on his chest and wondered how it happened. He felt like Frankenstein with the deep stitches. The doctor came in and gave him the more official version of what the nurse mostly told him. He told him he was going to need to take medication for the rest of his life to make sure the heart took. But when he asked about who the heart belonged to, he completely shut off. He was told that they were not supposed to know that information unless the donor allowed it beforehand. His parents came, as well as a few of his second-tier friends that he knew IRL, but was never that particularly close to. All of his best friends were online, and most of them probably didn't know why he hadn't logged back on, because they would have had no discernible way to have heard it through the grapevine. He got back on Discord and hit up Tallyho, his best friend, who had apparently been texting him constantly for the past few weeks. "Hey, I'm back. I had a heart attack." "Heart attack, bro? I thought you were 17. "I thought I was too, but my heart was like, fuck you, I'm out." "Was it COVID or something?" "It was a heart attack." "Shit, I don't know. Everything is a symptom of COVID. How's the channel doing?" The three thinking bubbles appeared as if Tallyho was attempting to figure out how to proceed next. "Good, but not great. I did a video on how British actors were the black athletes of acting." LOL, LOL, smiley face emoji. Doe felt a tingle in his fingers and pressure in his heart, or whoever's heart it actually was. "I gotta go," he texted Tallyho. He moved to the clicker thingy to bring the nurse in the room, but he couldn't reach it. His heart pounded like a bass drum, and as he clutched it, his hand pushed through his chest as if it were protected with pudding. Doe screamed out impotently as his hand pushed itself inside of his chest. There was absolutely nothing there. He fell out of the bed and writhed on the floor. There was blood on his hands. He had pushed through the stitches on his heart. The nurse ran in frantically and put the little streamer back in the bed. "Where's my heart?" Doe said, incoherently ranting. Other people poured into the room. They strapped him down, and a big male nurse jabbed a needle in his neck. When he woke, it went from day to night. Doe was in a dark room bathed in midnight blue. He was no longer strapped down, but he had wires connected to him. He had to figure out if it was all a dream, if there was something going on. He couldn't feel his heart beating, or whose ever heart he supposedly had. He stumbled through the hospital and wandered like a zombie. He had to have a heart. It was impossible for him not to. Whatever he felt, whatever he saw, was a drug-addled hallucination. He was too scared to ask the people that were his direct caretakers, because he was sure that they'd cover it up if there actually was a cover-up. He found radiology and noticed someone who was out of it on a mobile bed. He checked his chart and realized that he was up for an x-ray, and was too fucked up to know the difference either way. He just swapped out his charts and sat in a bed that was along the wall. He hoped that whatever nurse rolled down the other guy was not the same person doing the x-ray. Hospitals were so compartmentalized anyways that you could easily trick the system if you had a devious mind. All he wanted to do is see what was actually in his chest, and maybe he could get some sort of clue from the radiologist. A shocked reaction, perhaps a picture on that light board thingy they put up. A nurse wheeled him into the room and asked him if he was Mr. Jenkins, and of course he was, for the sake of argument. They put him under the lights of the huge alien machine and began the process. He had to keep still or the pictures wouldn't work, but he could hear the doctors in the other room having a loud conversation. When they drug him out of the MRI machine, there were 3 doctors towering over him with concern. "So the readings didn't take, Mr. Jenkins. We're going to have to recalibrate the machine." One doctor pulled out a stethoscope and put it to Doe's heart. He did almost an exaggerated lean-in, attempting to listen. He looked at Doe with a fake smile that was meant to convey everything was fine, routine, but his skill set was medicine, not acting, and it looked off. He pulled the other 2 doctors out of the room, and Doe could hear the loud conversation they were having in abstract muffles. The 3 doctors all entered the room with stethoscopes and attempted to listen in to Doe's heart. One doctor took off his stethoscope and took another one from the wall. When he didn't get the result he wanted, he went low-tech and felt for Doe's pulse on the wrist. He looked to the other doctors a few times, opened Doe's shirt, placed his ear back on the teenager's chest, right on the crisscross stitches of his heart. The doctor felt slight wetness on his ear. When he pulled it away, there was a long slime trail that stretched with elastic black goo. Before the doctor had time to pull away, an inky black tendril of oozing slime thundered out of Doe's chest and wrapped around his head and neck. Doe screamed and tried to grab the rapidly expanding blackness. His hands were slick with slime and he couldn't get a grip. The tendril squeezed the doctor while the other two jumped backwards in horror. After the second of fear and shock, they attempted to pull their colleague away, one on each arm. Two additional tendrils roared out from Doe's chest, grabbing at limbs, latching to whatever it could catch. The blackness ripped into the other doctors and raised them up with strength unknown. It seemed unfathomable, the flimsy design of the tendril. Doe watched in horror as the monster born of the void in his chest slammed, squeezed, and maimed innocents, making him an accomplice in a murder he had neither planned nor anticipated. He tried to get up and move out of the room. His thinking was that if he could leave the situation, maybe he could somehow get the blackness to relent. He got up and the tendrils just accommodated his movements, twisting to allow him to pass, causing no strain or discomfort on his body at all. If he wasn't watching the three entangled doctors get broken beyond recognition, he wouldn't have even thought he had any part of it. He moved to the door and the darkness provided more. It stretched in an endless stream of blackness. One doctor went inert as his head was dented beyond salvage. Another mutely screamed with tendrils of blackness seeping into his open mouth, pulling at his jaw as it slammed him on the MRI machine. Doe began slamming the door into the thick strands of darkness, and it seemed to only get stronger. After a moment, people had gathered in the hall to investigate the racket and watch Doe wrangling and oozing black slime, without seeing the full extent of the picture. Doe looked around and suddenly the ruckus in the other room ceased. As he was about to address the crowd, the black tendril spooled back into his chest like a yo-yo string. The broken bodies of the doctors destroyed the door in a violent explosion. Their mutilated forms cracked unnaturally quickly to pass through the pieces of the door that didn't break from the full force of bones and meat smashing it. The hole in Doe's chest expanded, but only slightly, as broken bodies crushed and compacted to enter through his impossibly small orifice. "What the fuck?" Doe yelled. The symphony of screaming onlookers entered his mind and disoriented him. He grabbed his ears. The black tendrils in his chest were quiet and still relatively in comparison to the hell it brought seconds before. It was the size of wispy webs coming from his chest that had closed itself of its own volition. The people's screams made his darkness react and slowly pass through his open wound. This was when he chose that the only thing he could do now was get as far away from the situation as he could so he couldn't snatch anyone else. He ran through the hospital with only his blue patient gown. It was cold outside, but he was still very much in a heightened state from the destruction he had wrought. "What did I do? What did I do?" he muttered to himself. He couldn't call himself the ultimate survivor. He was 17 and came from a middle-class family. He didn't know how to just make it on the street with no money and no lifeline. Doe just had to start with first things first. And that was to get away from people and figure out what the fuck was in his chest. How the fuck was he alive if he didn't have a heart? Where the fuck did those doctors that thing killed go? How could 3 people fit inside of him? Being a child of horror and sci-fi, he had theories that fit his situation, but no way to confirm them. He pulled out his phone, the only thing he had on him when it all went down. He texted Tally-Ho. "Dude, I'm fucked up. I don't have a heart, and this shit busted out of my chest," he texted furiously. "What the actual fuck are you talking about, man?" "I don't have a heart. It's just a hole in there." "ROFL. Okay," said Tally-Ho. Doe grimaced and walked blindly down the street. He knew the fucking drill. Pics or it didn't happen. What the fuck was he expecting Tally-Ho to do anyways, other than make off-color comments and film him even if he did believe him? He wandered the streets until he actually started to feel the cold. He stopped at an underpass and saw 3 homeless men warming their hands over an open fire. He had never in his life talked to a homeless person, let alone attempted to buddy up with one. but he was so cold that he did that tonight. He asked if he could get in there, and to his surprise, they didn't even flinch. He was welcomed into the fold. "You okay, friend? You look like you need real help," one of the men said, sensing that he didn't truly belong out on the streets. "I don't know who can help me," Doe said, pulling back his chest scar. "Heart troubles? I had 'em too," said one of the older men. He pushed away several layers of clothing to reveal a faded scar over his chest. "I had a pacemaker and everything." "What happened with that?" Doe said with urgency. The vagrant took a pull from a brown paper bag and shrugged. "Nothing really, it's still fucked up. I guess I run on Grey Goose and luck. Fuck it, luck it, right?" he said as all the other men chuckled. Doe chuckled as well, just because he had to. Though he doubted very highly if this guy had a bad day, he'd sprout tentacles and kill everyone. He dozed off by the fire and woke up in the wee hours of the morning to the ringing of his cell phone. He saw it was his mother. He picked up, though it was done with heavy deliberation. "Is that you?" she said. "Yeah, I'm here." "Where are you?" "I don't know, I'm sleeping on the street." "Come home. We heard about the incident at the hospital. We have people here who can help you." "Help me? How exactly would that work?" "I don't know, Dorian, but what's the alternative?" Doe paused and thought about it. What exactly was the alternative? Was this one of those luck it fuck it situations where he just rode it out and crossed his fingers? "Okay, Ma, I'll do it, but you can't be anywhere near me until I get it under control." "But..." "No buts. You can't be there, Mom. I don't know what will happen to you." "Okay," she said in a defeated but resigned voice. Doe sat by the homeless men and he found out. Surprisingly, homeless people were actually mostly regular people, and in some cases better because none of them had boring stories. If he ever did manage to figure this thing out, he may have to come back and see what he could do to help these dudes. He opted to meet these mystery people at the park because it was spread out enough that not many people would be around, and there was less chance for a flare-up to happen. He caught his first glimpse of these so-called helpful people stalking through the brush. They all had on tactical gear and armor, each of them brandishing guns, and a handful had weapons he couldn't easily identify. But they looked like they were misshapen and big, like something Rob Liefeld would have drawn in the 90s. "Are you Dorian Bastille?" "Yeah," he said. "I'm Keith Wins. Please drink this," he said, taking a canister from his belt, where Doe thought a flashbang would be if Call of Duty were to be believed. Before he could get a good look at what he was being handed, his chest reacted as if agitated by all this attention. The darkness stretched out for the man attempting to hand him a lifeline, as if it were jealous of anything attempting to surpass it in importance. The soldier rolled as a black tendril slammed down on the ground where he was. It was bigger than Doe had seen last time, and stronger judging from the extreme impact it made on the ground. "Do it, people, this is what we get paid for," he said. The mysterious soldier began open firing, and the black tendrils reacted instinctively. Limbs of the slime shot forth from Doe's chest and snaked around his body. What appeared to be bullets were not, but something that dug into the slime's skin darkness and popped with electrical conductivity. Doe didn't feel any of it, even though it was coming from him. He saw one of the soldiers fire his oversized weapon, and the crisscross patterns of a net flew out and pinned one of the seemingly endless supply of tendrils that were born of Doe's body. One of the inky black limbs made a wide, sweeping arc. Some of the soldiers rolled, but a handful that didn't were enveloped in its clutches. The monster squeezed until the body popped from the pressure. Doe screamed and tripped onto the ground, so shocked from the sudden violence. The first soldier that addressed Doe gained the focus of the initial tendril, and he rolled and evaded around trees, hopped and ducked. Doe saw that whatever Keith was attempting to hand him was still on the ground where he dropped it. Since the thing didn't hinder his movements at all, he stepped forward and slowly inspected the can, with none of the urgency that being in his situation would warrant. He heard the death knells of another soldier, and a blob of misshapen matter fell next to him. He looked over the can and it was a Monster energy drink. It didn't look any different from any other monster that you could pull off the shelf. As he took a few seconds to decide what to do, the red mass of organic matter was absorbed and sucked into a tendril. The slimy black mass swelled like a snake that had swallowed something that looked too big for its body. Doe pulled the tab on the monster like it was a grenade, expected something sinister to happen, but all it did was make the all too familiar carbonated hiss. He hesitated for a moment, but took a good look at the destruction in his wake and drank. Luck it, fuck it. As the liquid ran down his throat, he could feel the familiar tingle in his heart, whether he had one or not. Tendrils began to settle and seep back into the wound on his chest. Keith stood up and got on his shoulder-mounted radio. The beast is sleeping, repeat, the beast is sleeping. There were incomprehensible, garbled replies that Doe couldn't understand coming back. The soldiers that hadn't been squished and absorbed in the massive meatball of darkness formed up as if they had pre-rehearsed protocols. "How are you feeling?" Keith asked Doe. "I'm feeling pretty good, actually." "That's good." Another soldier got out a stethoscope and put it to Doe's chest. "We got a heartbeat," he said. Keith nodded. "I need to request cleanup. Target is secure." "Target? Am I the target?" Doe asked. Keith chuckled a bit, almost inaudibly. "No, that's the target." "What happened? What was in that shit you gave me?" "Nothing." "Well, that's not true, but it was just another Monster energy drink." "Why did that work? Why did that put it to sleep like you said? Why do I have a heartbeat again?" "I can't get into the details because smarter people than me will be able to explain it far better than I could. But the short answer is, you drank too much of this shit and it turned you into a monster." Oh. What? "Yeah, most people just have critical heart failure, but some people have stuff similar to what you have." "Wait, you guys aren't the military?" "Oh God, no. We're Monster Corporation's field retrieval technicians." "So what does that mean for me? Are you gonna kill me or study me in a lab?" "No to the first, probably a little of the second, but what happens next is up to you. We're gonna take you to corporate headquarters to link you with one of our quality assurance agents." "Huh? Why are you still using corporate terms?" "Because it's a corporation, kid. Look, please come with me so we can discuss your options, but for now, here, drink a Monster. Let's give the beast what it wants." "Okay," said Doe skeptically while cracking the tab.
I know that the paranormal is real. Listen.
Oh lordy, I love talking with you people, but the work don't stop for no man. So unless you want to grab a shovel and dig, I'm gonna say good night to you. Bye bye, children. Be on the right side of the night.